No idea? Isn't this what the entire book, series of articles, and now the film are supposedly based on? What Kevin actually did? I was amazed by what he didn't know. But there was more that he did know and had never talked about before.
The one interesting thing that hasn't been made public, you know, so much was made of the fact that the credit cards were never used. They were used. An American Express card that was part of the Netcon collection was used in Raleigh within 2 days after Kevin was arrested. So, who used it?
How did you find this out?
I've just known it for a long time.
So you're saying the credit card was used in Raleigh, and there's possibly it was used after he was arrested?
I think that there are some indications that there was someone that Kevin was in contact who knew about all of this and may have been active in it that was in the Raleigh area. I mean, all I'm saying is there's some evidence.
How come this wasn't in the book?
How come it wasn't in the book? It's a good question. I don't know why we didn't put it in the book. I really don't know.
This was really getting annoying. He didn't follow up on what may have been the most interesting part of the story, and he didn't mention this little fact about the credit cards until now. One more remark like that, and it's all over for Markoff.
How many people are standing here and not one person took my brochure? Look at all these people. Not one of them took this. Valuable coupons.
What are they doing now?
Kevin Mitnick, he's the computer wizard. Yeah. The way that the Japanese wizard found him was very interesting. Mitnick respected the Japanese wizard for tracking him. On the other hand, since the whole computer business is stupid and ridiculous to begin with, why should Mitnick suffer for a ridiculous assault on culture, namely the computer? So that's it.
What do you think of computers?
I hate them.
That's why?
Because they're not like feeling skin, and they're not like walking in the forest, and one can get lost deeply in them. My son, of course, is in that world.
These
but
people
I'm not
are computer.
I know, it's all right. But
he's a computer foe.
Hackers are all right because they're anarchists. That's fine. But the rest of it, you know, it's all pornography.
This is such bullshit.
I like Chaos Computer Club. I like anarchy.
You know Chaos?
No, but I like the whole idea.
Heard of it.
I like the whole idea.
Because
No, it's great. But no, Mitnick's, it's ridiculous.
Hey, look, an activist. Look at this, a bag full of artificial intelligence.
They're from the 80s, but I still thought, just to get back to my roots. Well, basically, it's like, you know, the government's making him look like it's to create a hacker mythology so that they can deprive other people of, you know, privacy and other stuff like that. And he hasn't done anything wrong, you know, he hasn't even done any financial damage to anybody. It's basically just like, you know, scapegoat. I think most of the kids that I hang out with are cool, geeky hacker types, so they understand, but like, you know, then there's, you know, my mom and everybody else who kind of just like, you know, why would they have any reason to believe anything other than he's a total scumbag who, you know, like war games, you know, the hacking.
Oh, that guy! Didn't he break into like massive computer systems?
He's not accused of selling information, he's not accused of destroying the computers, he's just accused of copying some files.
Oh, that's
3.5 years in prison for that. How does that sound?
Cool. Wow, alright, great.
Crazy.
Registered to vote?
Oh, you're an activist too, huh?
Could you imagine if somebody made a film about you and they get this totally evil kind of guy to play you and, you know, just take everything that you ever did and make you look like you're really terrible? Oh, and look, there he is cheating on a crossword puzzle, too. Oh, that guy. Many interesting items relating to Telegraph Street.
Street scene, we're the best place for street scene material. We threw on the street scene. We've got a paper, newspaper, we've got a novel, we've got documentary counters, we've got 9 counters, 9 years, man.
Like, what sysadmin is going to have / in their path before, like, user local bin? I mean, it was kind of cool. It's like about using etsuid and making a script called ls and keeping it in your home directory, and then creating a file with escape characters and pretending to be a lamer and being like, hi, I need help deleting this. And then when they go in there and do an ls, but what sysadmin is going to have / in their path before user local bin?
I don't know, man. Some of those hackers, when I'm on my computer, send me all this shit all at once.
Like what?
And it just, I don't know, just like all these messages that makes my computer like...
Are you on AOL by any chance?
No.
Oh, okay.
Prodigy.
We've really been bending over backwards to help this guy, and he's only 1 point away from disqualification. Well, let's do an easy one. The film. Everyone hates the film, right?
I mean, when I read the screenplay, I was mostly just disappointed because it seemed like a crummy screenplay.
There we go. He's back in the running. With one clip to go, the best Markov could hope for was a tie. So I gave him a chance to show some humanity. I asked him to help us help Kevin and sign a petition to get him released from prison and end the nightmare. He didn't want to sign the petition, but he had a better idea.
Well, you know, if you could pass a message to Kevin and say if he'd be willing to sit down and talk to me before his trial, I would love to do a piece. And I think that's perfectly fair.
If nothing else, you gotta give the guy credit for trying. More than a decade of writing about Kevin, and he still had yet to talk to him. Now it was time for our last corporate visit, Novell, who claimed Kevin cost them more than $75 million. We went to their corporate headquarters in Provo, Utah. Okay, now the road says 180 east. Alright, we want 122 east, 1700 south. It's like some sort of locker combination. Okay, here we are. Is there somebody in charge of security, maybe?
The person in charge of security is what's his name? Tom Christensen or something like that.
Okay.
He's just brand new.
Wow, check that out. This guy is so worried about us seeing his name tag that they went through this whole acrobatic act to turn it over nice and casual-like. But in the end, it was just like everywhere else. Nobody was allowed to say anything. But at least we tried. Hey, pal, look down. Whoops. So the last corporate door had been closed on us. And now we had one last task, to head across the country and stop the film. We knew it wouldn't work. We always knew it wouldn't work. But that's what hacking has been about from the beginning, doing things that you knew wouldn't work, just because you had to. And trying to ignore the fucked up shit that was happening to your friends and trying not to feel bad when you couldn't change a thing. As we drove from state to state, I thought of how bad it could get, how bad it had already gotten. I remembered what they do to people who piss them off. I remembered what they did to Bernie.
The Bernie S. case, as far as I'm concerned, got blown out of proportion by a lot of things. It got blown out of proportion by the prosecution, who knew what exactly he had done, and their representation of it was almost to make him look like the guy who blew up the Murrah Federal Building. To do that was an incredible leap, but they managed to pass that off. They made Bernie S. look like an absolute terrorist.
The new statute that my attorney had never heard of, and neither had I, that in fact it wasn't even in the law books yet. It makes it a federal felony to possess hardware or software for the modification of telecommunications instruments for the unauthorized access to telecommunications services. It wasn't accused or alleged to have done anything with software or ever cloned a cellular phone or anything of that nature. Just the mere possession of these things now constituted a federal felony according to this new statute. The judge ordered me held without bail based on the fact that books, in fact I think I had 2 books in my home on how fireworks, explosives are made. That stuff is fascinating. I had about 2,000 books in my personal library.
What little media attention the case got made Bernie look like a dangerous maniac. But he had never stolen anything, not even a phone call. Everything they used to make him look like a terrorist was something he had legitimately obtained. But when the Secret Service wants you in prison, nobody asks him why, not even a judge.
Your Honor, when we initially searched Mr. Cummings' house, federal agents discovered a substance they believed to be C4 plastic explosives. And while upon later analysis it turned up not to be C4, the fact that it might have been concerned us greatly. And based on that, we would recommend for a stronger sentence. And the judge didn't even blink at that sort of a thing.
Then the prosecutor made a startling revelation to Bernie's lawyer.
She had told him she was under a lot of pressure to prosecute this case by the Secret Service. And that, in fact, the real reason, and that's a quote, the real reason, end quote, Ed is in jail, was not because of crystals or software or anything like that. It was because of other things that they found in my house. Namely, surveillance photographs of undercover Secret Service agents. So I made these photos available at the 2600 meeting, and it apparently was a coincidence because I didn't call them, but the local Fox television affiliate Fox 29 in Philadelphia, their news division, showed up at the meeting.
Most are between their mid-teens to late 20s. They gather every Friday night at 30th Street Station for all to see. It's called the 2600 meeting, named after a telephone frequency. And meetings like these are advertised in a high-tech magazine you can buy at a bookstore. Some hackers call themselves fighters for the freedom of information. The U.S. Secret Service monitors some hackers, but hackers say it should be the other way around.
And in this photograph here, the Secret Service agent is picking his nose. Secret Service didn't find it humorous. Not only did they have some of their agents' covers blown, but picking their noses on major market television news station. So we all thought that was amusing, and until I was in federal prison and I found out that that was the real reason I was locked up, was because of that.
For a year and a half, Bernie was bounced around maximum security prisons throughout Pennsylvania.
I think they got tired of me filing these appeals, because I found myself in handcuffs and shackles and taken up to Lehigh County Prison, which had a reputation amongst prisoners that I'd talked to over the past year as probably one of the roughest prisons in Pennsylvania.
Within a day, Bernie was attacked.
He punched me in the mouth, and I went down. He's a big guy, probably weighed like 220 pounds. And I think it turns out later he was on drugs, coming down off crack or something. But anyway, I went down, and he started to kick me in the head, and I put my arm up to block his kick, and it broke my arm also.
After bleeding for hours, Bernie was finally taken to the hospital, but the authorities refused to let him contact his relatives.
The hospital wanted me to sign this waiver, sign this, wherever you go into surgery, you have to sign this thing saying that, you understand all the risks involved. I refused to sign the papers. I said, not until I get a hold of my uncle, at least let somebody in my family know what's going on. And the prison officials went bananas that I wouldn't sign this waiver, because there was a liability for them that I wasn't getting medical treatment. I was severely injured, and they needed to operate on me right away. We got all the way up to the warden of this place, and my uncle was a known person in the community. He'd been president of the city council for years. I mean, they all knew who he was. He wasn't someone who was going to run down there and try to spring me out of the hospital. Meanwhile, I was handcuffed and shackled to the hospital bed, which is ridiculous. I didn't feel like going anywhere. I was in bad shape. So, with a guard sitting there with a gun, making sure that I didn't break the handcuffs and run away, I was denied antibiotics for 2 days. I was denied any painkillers at all, not even aspirin, which I couldn't take because my teeth were completely wired shut. And I was in probably the most excruciating pain that I've ever had, but more than I could ever imagine. Having multiple fractures, and it was like being in altered states of consciousness, this much pain. And they weren't even bringing me food I could eat. They were bringing me solid food, which I couldn't eat because my jaw was wired shut. I was getting to the point where I was starting to feel like I don't care anymore. I was really feeling like I give up. I just lose my will to go ahead. I was able to get a phone call out the next day, tell people where I was, what was going on, and that really, I think, is when a major telephone campaign, internet crusade started gaining momentum. We had state representatives getting called. I mean, major politicians getting calls and calling the prison saying, "What's with this? What's this generating all the publicity for?" Finally, I think the prison and the judge realized they didn't need this publicity. They wanted to get this thing over with and wash their hands of it. So the judge signed an order to have me released on a medical furlough, which the guards had never even heard of before. They said, "What the hell is that? The people who die in here, we don't even let them out." So this was an unusual thing. I'm convinced that all the publicity generated by 2600 magazine, their website, the radio interviews. I even forgot to mention that. I'd been repeatedly interviewed on WBAI's Off the Hook show with Emmanuel Goldstein, and people were following this case from the beginning, and it was generating a lot of attention that way as well. I got letters. I got hundreds of letters